So now I've hogged out the control cavity with the Forstner bit and then cleaned it up with a chisel. And the next thing to do is to route it. So I've got some offcuts of the edges of some MDF which are perfectly straight. So I'm going to make a template for the router out of bits of MDF and then route the cavity. And then I need to drill a hole through from the body here into the cavity for the cables to go, plus a hole through from the bridge wire into there. So to route the cavity down to the right size, I've set up a template with MDF stuck on with a super glue and masking tape trick. That will let me route out the channel right down to the depth. And then once I've done that, I can move these out a couple of mil to accommodate the lip I'm going to put in with the rabbit cutter I've got, to then put the cover on. And that should work well. And that worked very nicely. I've got a very nice, smooth, flat, even control cavity. So the next thing to do is cut a lip for the control cavity cover to sit on. So I got a few spare bits with my router, and this one is some kind of edge cutter for God knows what the hell that is. But this bit here would work nicely as a lip cutter, and if I run that just around the edge of that, that will cut a nice lip on which I can put my backplate. And there we have it. Cut a nice straight lip all the way around for the backplate to sit in, and I've cut some dowels in half which are going to sit up against there to then screw the backplate in, because trying to cut that out of the maple was going to be very difficult, so that was easier. So this is the finished cavity. I've left most of it at 10mm for strength, and then I've just taken it down to 5mm where the pots are, because in SGs in particular, where you have the output jack on the top, they get a lot of force on them and they can tear out. So I've left a lot of material around that for maximum thickness. And I've finished making my back plate, which fits somehow. There it is. And that matches the grain very nicely. So it's getting very close to completion. I've put the side dots in the neck and sanded all that down. It's all fretted. I still need to file the ends of the frets off. I've drilled the holes for the bridges and the ferrules. I need a bridge wire hole, but that's going to have to wait until the body's on. So the next thing to do now is glue the body on. So I'm going to start with the top, do it one at a time. I've got a nice good fit. And I'm going to use the offcut as a clamping caul, so I can do get good pressure onto the joint. So I've got it all clamped up, and I've got these two clamps either end with some blocks wrapped in wax paper to keep everything aligned, and then everything clamped up and everything nice and tight. And then we'll leave that overnight and it should be good. So it's now the next day, so I'll take the clamps off and see what happened. I've cleaned up the glue joint now, and it's looking very nice. It's all nicely aligned. Very slight lip, but that's to be expected. But that's looking very good. So now to glue the other one on. So now I've clamped up the lower side of the body, again located with these two clamps, with a bit of MDF wrapped in wax paper to keep everything aligned, and then again using the offcuts as clamping cauls to get a nice even pressure. Looking good. It's the next day now, so I'll take off the clamps and see how it's worked. And it's looking good. The joint seems to be nice and tight, no gaps. Very happy with that. The access neck joint has worked quite well. I'll blend it all in once I've routed the back and the template. But that's looking good. It's quite heavy. It's a chunky boy. So I've got the template mounted on the back of the body with a copy of the template underneath it so I can take a shallower pass. And I've got the same height of maple and MDF on this side so I can run the route around without risk of it rocking. The maple's gotten very hard as it's dried over the last 6 months. So we'll see how easy this is to do. So I've now routed half the body. I was worried about chip out on the horns, but it's worked very nicely. Needs a bit of sanding, that's to be expected. So tomorrow I'm going to drop it another 10mm and do the rest of it do that much from the top, and then once we've done that I'll switch to the bottom bearing cutter and use that to trim the rest of it off. So now I've finished routing out the shape of the guitar. And you can see the different lines as the different routers cut from the different directions. These bits are quite tricky. But it's worked out quite nicely. Next thing to do is do the pickup routes. So I've got my template here. I'm going to stick it on with some tape. So I put a round over on both sides. It took way too much there as the router slipped, but I managed to blend it in. And now I'm going to route the pickup cavities. So I've got my template attached here, I've got the router with the bearing bit. I'm going to take it down to 20mm deep, and that should be just about right. And there we have it, that's the body finished. Got the 3 cavities, I'm only going to use 2, and leave the middle one empty. I might put another pickup in that at a later date, in which case I would then have 3 master volumes, or 3 volumes and a master tone. I have to swap the switch, but for the time being I'm just going to use the 2. Got the round over on the body. I'm going to have to do some of an access carve here to get to the higher frets. But other than that, it's all looking very nice. I'm not going to do a comfort carve because it's a thin body as it is, and with the round overs that's enough anyway. So yeah, looking very good. Very happy with that. Now for lots and lots of sanding. After a lot of sanding, I've now got a nice smooth finish, and I'm going to put the oil on. Now I'm using hemp oil. I was looking at the other oil finishes, but if you look at the data sheets, they all say this may make your organs melt, and I like my organs where they are. So hemp oil is the only natural oil finish that doesn't have nasty additives. And I've tried it on a bit of the maple offcut, and it leaves a nice finish. That's not polished, that was only one coat, so that looks very nice. So here we go, let's try oiling it. Ooh, that's pretty. Oh yes, that's very pretty. Yes, I couldn't get all of the tear out because some of it was very deep, but I knocked the sharp edges off. Ooh, purple heart looks good. Oh yes, that's very pretty. After 3 coats of the hemp oil, it's looking very nice indeed. Especially the mahogany's got some lovely figuring. Dances as it moves. Fretboard's looking nice. And a bit of figure in there. The back looks lovely, and the back of the neck looks particularly nice. It's a really nice grain pattern in there. The headstock looks good as well. Yeah, the hemp oil's very nice, leaves a nice light finish. And we have strings on, finally. The nut is way too high, so I've got to take that down. So the chords are out when I play them, but it's sounding quite good. So it still needs to be set up, and I've still got to, of course, put the controls in. But that shouldn't take long, and the next time you'll see it, it'll be screaming.